From contracts to career coaching, from climate resilience to cutting edge AI tech. This is Asheville. Welcome to Aspire 2025. Woo! There we go. All right, so welcome to What the RFI. I'm Matt Brennan, and this is the podcast all about CA. So today, again, we are live here in Asheville. This is amazing, at AIA Aspire 2025, as we already talked about. And not only that we're live, but the reality is we've got a powerhouse panel here, okay? And I just appreciate everyone being part of this, okay? So let's get right into the introductions. Mark, principal at LS3P and also a founding Aspire volunteer. So that's the official version, though. But Mark, why? Tell us, introduce yourself, and in your own words, of course.
Sure. Yeah, I won't go too deep into Aspire because I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But Mark Levine, I am principal and vice president at LS3P in the Atlanta office. I have been engaged in AIA leadership for my entire career at all levels, local, state, regional, and at the national board. I've always had a passion for bringing people together, hence Aspire, hence why we're here. I don't know how deep you want to go, but I want to allow time for co-panelists here.
Well, here's a good question.
Yeah.
Since you've been with Aspire from the beginning, thinking back, do you remember what the first Aspire looked like and how it is today?
I absolutely do. And again, I was hopefully going to chat about this in a little bit.
We're going to get into details.
But but I do remember it was extremely exciting to be engaged in a very new, different experience of bringing people together. 2019 was the first year we had Aspire right here, and this was the opening and at the Worthing Theater. I also remember that was the year that Notre Dame burnt down. And I can remember talking to 200 plus architects and, just acknowledging that. It was a very somber experience. Mm-hmm. But here we are. And again, we'll talk about this path of resilience and rebuilding and how it relates to Asheville as well.
Have you been to Notre Dame since?
I'm going next month.
Okay.
Wow.
It is. Yeah, I was there in April. Incredible. So you'll appreciate it, and you'll get to see even more than what I saw because of the construction. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Morgan, licensed architect, career coach, the Healthy Architect podcast. You've got this down packed already, but I'd love to introduce yourself, of course, and in addition, to share what lights up the most about the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah. So hi, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. I can confidently say that I have the coolest job in the entire world sitting up here, right? And it is awesome to be here. So I'm a career coach for design professionals and architects. And if I had to tell you what I did in a one-liner, it would be that I help architects increase their income and their impact. So I work with both employees and architecture firms. For my employees, I've helped architects, I've coached architects, licensed and unlicensed, we can get into that later, but increase their salary by 38% and decrease their hours to 32-hour work weeks, on top of negotiating for maternity leaves when they weren't even pregnant and there were never maternity leaves in place. So that's how I help employee architects. And then on the firm side, I have coached firm owners double the revenue in 6 months. So I am here to create big impact and talk about money in the architecture industry.
We're totally going to get into that a little bit later down the road here, on this show, of course. And I guess with you at this intersection, this key kind of point in this milestone in your career. But the question is, what moment did you make the switch to this? Because clearly you got the history, and then you've made this move. When did you realize that this was needed because this was a big impact?
I realized that the impact that I was having within a traditional architectural role was minute compared to what I could do if I went out on my own and made the Healthy Architect. I realized that I had the soft skills to help other men and women in architecture create massive change. And I knew that if I stayed in my architecture firm, I would be making a small micro scale impact. And if I went on my own, now I'm talking to architects in Nigeria. Like, how cool is that?
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, appreciate it. And thanks for being here. Gil, master of AI technology, wizard, sorcerer of all that.
I don't know.
You don't know. Beyond the bio, how do you describe when someone asks, what do you do?
Oh, well, I think that's a tough question. I feel like it changes from day to day, right? But at this moment, I think I'm the AI technology architect at Newcomb and Boyd. I kind of spearhead their AI adoption firm-wide, trying to bring in all kinds of AI automation into the workflow. But also, I'm also the chair for Aspire, the continuing education board, which I absolutely enjoy. I think, as what Mark said, bringing people together and sharing ideas and innovation. Because I don't know, I feel like the AEC industries is in a rut, and no one's talking about the different new ideas. And I think coming here just kind of gives about that freedom to speak for the most part. So yeah, a couple of things.
Yeah, that was kind of my question, but you used AI to figure out what I was going to ask, and you said what keeps coming back, and you already answered it. So look at that. So,
Yeah.
But is there one particular thing that you go, I just have to be here because it's the community? What is it?
I think sharing information.
Yeah.
I feel like I do a lot of research on my free time, free time in quotes.
Yeah.
And I want to share that. I feel like that's how innovation happens, and for the most part, you give it for free, and then that gets picked up by somebody, and then that mutates, and then that grows.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only reason. And also the people. I love working with the board of Aspire. They're amazing people.
Yes.
So yeah, people for sure.
Awesome. Cool. No, thank you. So we're here, AIA Aspire. And Mark, I'm going to let you take lead on this because the question is, what is Aspire? What is the original story? What started this?
So Aspire, if summed down into one word, is an experience. Okay. The story of Aspire actually began in 2015 when I had the privilege of being the local Atlanta chair for AIA's National Convention, Georgia. And during that planning, I got to meet some real visionaries that were all involved about experience planning and event planning. Jumped to 2016, I became AIA regional director for the states of the two Carolinas and Georgia. And in 2017, I saw an opportunity for us to consolidate our resources. We had previously been doing state conventions. Each state would have their own. And there was a great opportunity to consolidate, but more importantly, kind of rebrand and transform our traditional conference into an experience, a non-traditional experience, one that was more engaging, one that was more relevant to our members, one that connected us to the community. And that was really the birth of Aspire. It's been a fantastic ride so far, and we keep growing.
If you had to kind of summarize in like a sentence, like you walk into a firm and they've got their mission statement, what would that look like?
I would say that Aspire is a transformative experience that brings people together in a community to have dialogue and problem solve some of our society's biggest issues, and certainly our profession's biggest issues, issues like resilience, climate action, equity, and have that dialogue.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get into that in a moment.
And to
here.
reconnect.
It's
all about reconnecting too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But why Asheville? Why did we, I love this. I came to this event last year and I fell in love with it. It reminds me of back home where I'm from. And again, I love hiking. Yesterday, I went up to Grandfather Mountain, did 10 kilometers. That's like 2 miles. No, I don't know how the conversion works, but yeah. But it is such a beautiful place. And what I really admire about this conference is that we're not in a stuffy conference room, that we go to every, like, how cool is that? But
you just said it all.
No, I didn't.
Aspire is so conducive to that experience. It's a nice, compact, vibrant downtown, and there is culture here. There are artisans here. There are lots of venues for us to get out and about, and great dining, and just go outside and look around. And you just said it all. That's why we're here. So as Aspire, when we started planning, Asheville rose to the top, and we started doing our planning here. And here we are 6-7 years later.
Right. And it'll never be anywhere else, right? Is any other city going to kind of come up and take its place?
Wouldn't be my choosing.
All right. Well, then done, it's settled. But here's the crystal ball question.
Part of the thing about coming back to Asheville is, and when you talk about an experience, is it's up here, right? When the annual conference comes around, it's, hey, I want to go have dinner with my friends down the street at Curate. I want to go do this. I want to sketch in Pack Square. It's already, there's already precedent, and there's memory, and there's experience, and why would you want to mess with it?
Yeah. And Morgan, Akhil, like any particular
Well,
spots in Asper?
I think also just because it's like I feel like equidistant between the 3 states that's part of Aspire, and also Kentucky that comes every alternate year, right? And so it's easier for everybody to travel and come to the spot, and so that makes it a lot more fun too, right? You don't want to drive 5 hours to get to a point.
Yeah.
But no, I think as what Mark said, it's more about walking around in the city. So I went to SCAD and in the Savannah campus, and it's exactly like this, where it's not one campus within the city. The city itself is a campus, and so that's a different experience altogether. You're kind of you're putting in 10,000 steps a day, which is good for your health, right? I think that's important. But secondly, kind of look at all the buildings, and you go eat in all the different places, and then it becomes a memory that you want to go back to every year, because you're like, oh, that was a great time. I definitely want to go back there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. But yeah, the big crystal ball question, Mark, what's Aspire look like over the next 5, 10 years, even 20?
Well, I hope Aspire grows, continues to grow. We've been growing, offering new opportunities. We added a climate symposium, and so we're adding curriculum and tracks to it. I also hope Aspire becomes more than just an architect-centric experience, and it involves the whole construction industry.
Nice.
The interior designers, landscape architects, programmers, developers who are doing responsible growth. They should all be part of the conversations that we're having here.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think that's a beautiful segue to talk about the whole rebuilding of Asheville, and we'll definitely get into the climate thing. So rewind. We were all here. We had the stage and everything. It was fantastic last year. I personally got on my plane to head back home. I wake up the next morning. It was a rough flight getting home, but that's a different story. Open my phone, and Asheville's on the front page. And I'm going, what the heck's happening? And Hurricane Helene just came in, and something you guys have never even really seen up here, correct? Like even Atlanta and all that stuff. You've never been involved in that. You haven't seen hurricanes come up here. So, yeah, it was totally devastating seeing the images on there. And even more, this is not my home. This is your home in that sense. And before we get into the kind of the topic of it, like in 2021, where I'm from out in Vancouver, BC, there was Abbotsford took a huge hit where they had the atmosphere river. We're like, what's this new term that the weather people are throwing around? And it was supposed to rain about a foot. No. It rained about 5 feet in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
And the water was just coming down, backyard looked like a pool, and roadways, major roadways, all going up to the north and everything gone. Abbotsford became flooded. Where I was out in Chawaga, we became an island. We had nothing coming back and forth. So again, it sucks how quick it come into this place. And elaborate on your experience from what you saw. You're right on the front lines here.
Well, I can speak from personal experience. September 27th, 2024, I live in Atlanta, and my house flooded, and I was out for 8 months. We just got back into our house. It was a very sombering experience, but if anything, certainly have empathy for everybody in this community. We were down, my wife and I were down in the Biltmore Village yesterday. And I mean, again, so sombering, having conversations with folks. They had 15 feet of water coming off the river. It's insane. It is more important than ever that we should support Asheville. So I'm very proud that we brought it back, Aspire back to Asheville again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I went out for dinner last night and just casual, again, interacting with everyone's conversations, and again, up on Grandfather Mountain, and just, this isn't going to be fixed overnight. They're on for a long road of recovery, and kind of like getting out there, lots of new bridges and everything because of that. Roads, the Blue Ridge Parkway, what a beautiful highway, to see it shut down too, right?
Yeah, crazy.
But
it's even more important that we're here to lead, not just but lead the conversations on disaster assistance, on recovery, on preparedness. That's what we do.
Yeah,
that's where we can lead.
So where are you finding from the architectural side where you guys have been involved in this road to recovery? You've been involved in a lot of the projects in that kind of sense? Any of your firms?
Well, I've had my own personal project for the last 8 months, so that's kind of my resilience story. We actually have a office here in Asheville, and of course, just the support in the community and rebuilding and the magnitude of that has been immense.
I will say I'm not from Asheville. I've never been here. Today's my first day here. I've never been to Aspire, so this is my first conference here. But in Kentucky, we had 2 hurricanes basically take out my hometown. It was detrimental, just like Asheville as well. But like you said, the community comes together and in a moment of somberness and a moment of empathy. And I've never seen a community work together that quickly and that efficiently as they did in that moment, because they had no other choice. They didn't have another direction to turn. So I'm assuming it was similar in Asheville, that there wasn't a choice. We had to go forward, all of us together.
Well, I wasn't personally involved, but I have a buddy of mine who owns a drone company.
Oh, yeah.
Shamrock Drones. Shout out to Shamrock Drones. But so he told me about how he had to hire a team of, I think, 10 to 15 people, and they were kind of scanning all of the of the mountain area, the roads and everything. And it was, I think, almost like a 10-day ordeal, which they were working back and forth in trying to get the scans up and running so that they can then report it to the local authorities of what is broken, what needs to be fixed.
Right.
So I knew that was happening.
Is he from the area?
No, he's from Savannah.
Okay.
Yeah, but he got contracted out to, because he's from the army, so like he got contracted out to help them fix that thing. So
nice.
That was a lot of work too. He showed me some of the scams, and they were beautiful in the way that it captured the data, which was so helpful for the authorities.
And like I've got my own Vans drone license out in Canada. And it's pretty cool, and all the rules and everything. And we've done that too for construction, and doing the cut and fill. And I know you can do it for forensics, from police scenes, and basically you can map and look around, and it's just another level. But that is really cool. I had no idea what a great tool, again, just to have it and look at it and do your reporting off of it, measure, because it's like these things are measuring within like 1 inch. Like it's incredible.
I wonder how far, and maybe you all have the answer to this, how far did the city outreach in terms of resources like engineers and architects and developers and scanners, et cetera, et cetera? Like how far did those consultants and subs actually come in from?
I don't know. I don't think I have an answer to that. I feel like maybe the surrounding states for sure, the Carolinas, and then Georgia. But I don't know.
I believe it was a regional effort, at the very least.
Because like, to kind of wrap up this little segment, Mark, like it wasn't like, of course, it wasn't just downtown and everything. Like it was everywhere. Like hearing that, like I didn't even think about like the Blue Ridge Parkway and all that. Hearing those roads, of course, there's water everywhere. So, but it was just all throughout the state, correct? Yeah.
Well, I think, wasn't it just in the line where Asheville is? Like, I think it was just in this particular location of how the hurricane came in, when it made landfall and came all the way up.
I just know the damage was
and they've got a long road recovery
beyond areas that would ever see such damage.
Yeah, 100%.
If I could tell a quick story,
absolutely,
because you're talking about where we have in our industry has impact, and we can provide tools. Just segue. When I was on the AIA board in 2020, what happened? COVID. Very different experience. Very different disaster, if you will. AIA formed a task force with the intent of twofold: providing societal assistance and providing businesses with professional assistance. And one of the efforts was the creation of an assessment tool where communities, cities, municipalities could go into buildings for adaptive reuse and use them as temporary healthcare centers. That assessment tool or tools was actually adopted by the U.S. Department of State, and it was translated into several languages where it was distributed through U.S. embassies across the world.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
that
pretty
is
cool.
pretty impactful.
That's impact.
Yeah.
And just, again, using when these moments happen to quickly become reactive, because that's you can't be proactive on this case, but that's what we're going to dive into now about the fact of climate design resilience. So how can we be proactive to stuff, and how is climate change reshaping the way that you design as a firm, as an architect, as a designer, interior designer? Big loaded question.
That is a big one.
Well, I think we're starting to see that our clients are starting to prioritize resilience and building performance over aesthetic. And, I haven't seen that too often in the past. Let me just say that need is elevated. And that's where we can contribute. And we're seeing a lot of a very shift in sustainability, movement towards sustainable design, materials, cradle to grave materials that, are more prevalent than ever and becoming, second nature into your buildings.
And some becoming requirements, like on universities or medical campuses.
That's right. Yeah. Very good.
I think on the east side, at least in Newcomb and Boyd, I feel like we are looking to get more data on the systems that we design. So we're saying that, hey, this is the system, but you can also get more information on how the system is working. And I think that's our push to kind of make data more accessible. That way we can make better decisions on how to be more sustainable with the usage of the space.
Yeah.
So that's what we are trying to push from the east side.
Right.
That this is one way to go about doing this.
Like on the one episode I had, one was a structural engineer and one was a profession in the concrete industry. And they were just talking about there is ways to be more sustainable because concrete is 8% of our CO2. Like it's the elephant. It's one of the big elephants in the room. And if we can get that reduced, and two, the amount of water that goes into it, and they were talking about even just changing things up and using less water, but still maintaining the required strength. And there is options out there. So again, with having your authorities and doing that, how are you finding that this is by pushing the envelope of going to this sustainable approach? How are you finding it like changing the project timelines? Is it having an impact, or are you still not like based on being proactive with it that it really doesn't matter?
Well, I don't know. I feel like that's a mixed bag. I think it goes back and forth there because sometimes you have clients come in early on saying that, yes, this has to be sustainable. But sometimes they come later on as a matter of fact and like, oh, we need it to be sustainable now. So I think it's gotten better in the sense that they're open to the idea and they want to talk about it, but we're still not doing it how we want to do it, where we start in the beginning and then the design is more organic with that. That's not as after fact thought, I don't know. I feel like that's still, it's still there.
I feel as if we as an industry still have a lot of educating to do. And we have to, when we're implementing this sustainable design, we have to learn to speak the same language as well. And so by educating the clients, we need to be able to teach them the importance of it overall. Right now, I don't believe what I'm seeing, at least, that they don't see not all clients, but some clients don't see the overall arching importance of it. And so I think educating ourselves as well.
But that's true. I think another thing that comes up is the cost, right? So because the 100%. Whole idea of sustainability is that you tend to make back the money that you spend now over the next 10 years, right? But if you were to actually do the math, you're not going to make back all of it. So the idea is that do I spend 5,000 now and then make back 4,600, say for example, or do I just spend like 3,000 and be happy with it and then spend the rest 2,000 in improving the facility design? So it's like I think the client also has a lot of check boxes that they need to tick off when coming with design, and so it kind of becomes an afterthought. So it's like it's a hard balance. One, also because you need the funding, and two, you don't want the building to not be built. So it's like it's a tough
I'm seeing a lot of architecture firms, and since I'm not in an architecture firm, I'm leaning on you all, but that have sustainability design leaders within the firm.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
And it's been around, like one firm, this is going back 15 years ago, and there was an advocate that was doing talks about like even preaching it then and trying to get us on involved. And that's when LEED was starting to really kind of come into place.
And these are even more than advocates. They are design directors, right? Like sustainability directors, which is super interesting.
But there was one project we did. It was a school in Kelowna, BC, and it was up on the hill. And the client, they love geothermal, so we decided to do geothermal. And then through our QS and through LEED and all that, we did the whole trade-off values. If you put insulation down at the foundation level, how much is that going to cost? If we remove it, what is it going to do to the envelope? And it was like minimal, and it was just playing with, dollars to dollars. Hey, should we take that same budget, put more insulation on the walls? Yes, because we're going to be heating. We don't need to heat this building as much. And in the end, when this project all wrapped up, based on the heat recovery systems that the mechanical engineer designed, based on the building envelope that we talked about, they even went to solar PV afterwards as well. We did that, and the fact that it was running on the geothermal, the thing was 100% sustainable. They didn't have to kick on and pull, and they actually were making money because they were selling the electricity back to the local government, and the local hydro and all that. And like, what a cool way of going. This is a self-sustaining building. It doesn't need to pull in these extra resources. They're, from a budget point, like what you said, you're not paying money into this because, like, you know, I always on, you know, looking on realtor.com and stuff like that, and I'm going, I'm not buying that. That thing is just going to be, it's made of bricks. It's just, there's no thermal mass to this. This thing's going to cost $400 to heat a per month in the coldest thing. And those strategies, and like you said, education really starts to play that key role.
Yeah. I do want to add, though, I think another thing that can make the situation better is by providing data at the meetings, which doesn't exist now. Right? Because if you were to ask somebody, what is the cost? What is it going to cost me to make this sustainable? The Revit data does not have like the cost for the materials that we use. So if we probably have better data, then it's more accessible for the designer to answer those questions to the client. And then so they can answer this even before they go down the whole path of, you know, not doing or doing. I think that sense, even getting the whole data onto, you know, accessible to the data, I think that would definitely help in pushing this envelope a little bit further.
And do you think with the data that we can use this to help, again, versus being reactive, but being proactive and trying to watch? And I know we didn't expect to have a hurricane hit Asheville. Like that was unbelievable, right? Like, where did that come out of left field, right? I know we can't predict what's going to happen, but through this data collection, and again, what you're seeing in all the products, can we at least kind of predict? You know, I guess it's more of you're doing your part, but any kind of takes on that one?
I don't know. I don't think you can predict. I don't know.
Yeah.
But data is always great.
Yeah.
Always. So the more data, the better.
And put my AIA hat back on. AIA has what's called the 2030 commitment. Over 1,500 of our member firms participate, and that helps measure, create, and account for the data we're talking about. And it encourages firms to participate, to, you know, elevate our members' activities in resilience and design, and for resilience and climate sensitive design.
Yeah.
So getting back to Aspire, one of the big courses, you know, career growth and all that, and this is more where you're going to kind of come into the picture. You're talking about that, and let's, you know, mentorships come up a few times, but your take on the whole mentorship level, and we've kind of heard of like little bits about giving back, but I want you to kind of take that question over.
Yeah, my take on mentorship level. I am working with several employees and civil architecture firms, and I'm pleased to notice that the larger architecture firms are having these internal mentorship type committees, which is very interesting. So they have individuals that are below them in terms of experience and above them in terms of experience as well. So I'm seeing a lot of internal mentorship in architecture firms, which is nice. Now, what I'm also seeing is positions like myself that are career coaches going outside of the typical architecture firm and mentoring, coaching, leveling up architects, design professionals, project managers to the next level of their career, which is much needed because this isn't something that we are ever taught in architecture school, right? These soft skills that are arguably just as important as drawing a toilet partition or drawing an extra detail of a wall, right? Like, these soft skills are extremely important if you want to get to the next level in your career.
Yeah. Like, Mark, when your firm, is there little breakout groups, you know, or do you assign mentorship?
We have mentorship at all levels, whether it's one-on-one in the office or intra-office, between offices. We have different groups within the firm, whether it's sustainability or, you know, technology, and we provide mentorship, you know, supporting people's passions and their directions and their careers as well.
Nice.
It's very multifaceted. I'm also a fellow in the AIA, and one of our charges as a fellow is to give back, pay it forward through mentorship of emerging professionals. In fact, pitch Monday night on top of the Capitol Club is a Emerging Leaders and Fellows Mixer. I hope everybody's attending.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, some of these smaller to medium-sized architecture firms, they don't have the infrastructure set up currently for mentorship programs like you're discussing in your 6-office firm, 12-office firm, excuse me. So many of my clients, my one-on-one clients, are coming from these smaller architecture firms that don't even have employee handbooks, right? So they don't have maternity leaves. They don't have paternity leaves. They don't even have PTO structure. They don't have any of that really formed in their architecture firm yet. So yes, they come to me to help them coach on these things, but then this next step after that is actually placing them in a firm employee handbook.
100%. Yeah. And I think you got to start with this one, Akhil. Like if you think back to one of those mentors that in your life, and I've got in my mind of that one individual, and like it didn't necessarily end on a good note, but it did end. You know what I mean? Like it's pruning, and pruning sucks. It really does. But when you stop and reflect, and you're like, oh, shit, yeah, they were absolutely right in that moment, and you become a better person typically, and
Better architect.
Better architect, absolutely. So like, is there one, and I'll ask all of you, but is there one person that was like, that made a big impact in your career, in your life?
I think all of them did.
Yeah.
It's very hard to pick one. I feel like, I don't know. I see mentors come into your life at different stages in life based on the context that you were surrounded with. I don't think any one mentor was always going to be the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see all of my previous mentors. I think maybe one, his name is Anil Dubey. He was my professor in undergrad back in Bangalore in India. And he was pretty harsh. Like he was always below the belt hitting, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he had so much knowledge that he imparted. And I think he was the one who kind of set the stage for me in what to expect in the field of architecture. That it's not going to be rosy.
Yeah.
Got to go. We got to push through some days, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think he was the first. I think he was also my first mentor. I think he would be the one.
Yeah. Mark, Morgan, you have anyone?
Oh gosh, yeah, you're right. I mean, you have mentorship throughout your entire career.
Yeah.
I still have mentors today.
Of course.
Early in my career, I worked, my first firm, I worked in Albuquerque. I've been in Albuquerque, Grand Rapids, now in Atlanta. But Bill Sabatini was a design principal at Home Sabatini and Eads. And he taught me about passion. He taught me about design and design principles. And, it just really set the tone. He became a good friend, and I just haven't forgotten that ever since. Yeah. On the flip side, one of the other partners at Home Sabatini Eads, Sandy Eads, he was the production arm for our small firm, and taught me a lot about construction documentation and the important, documents are a communication tool. That's what they are.
That's right.
And, back in the day when we used to be etching on ink and Mylar, some of you folks remember that, I hope, you could get carried away. And I'll never forget, I don't mean to be crass, but Sandy once came up to me, I was literally just, burning ink on the Mylar. He's like, Mark, it's not going to hang in the effing louvre. It's a communication tool. But that's a principle that I've carried forward,
It is, yeah.
And, I can teach you, whether it's on computer, whether it's by hand.
So I'm going to make a little plug here that's on topic, but I just want to make sure that I say this and that it's heard on your podcast, that I feel as if most of the individuals that come to me are women in the architecture community and industry that are small to mid-sized firms that don't have that mentor to look up to, that don't have that other female or woman in the architecture industry that they can look up to, which is very interesting. And then I have a mentor that I actually meet with still once a year. He was probably in his 70s. And the thing that he taught me, which at the time I was 20-some, he said, Morgan, get up from behind your computer and go walk the floors. Yeah. Go talk to people. Go network with the people that you're working with. Take them out to coffee. Go to the director of marketing. Take her out to coffee. Tell her what you're passionate about. Go to the finance director. Take him out to coffee. Tell him what you're passionate about. And that's how you're going to level up in your careers, networking internally and getting flipping leaving your chair, not sitting behind your computer 24/7, which is what I was great at the time.
That's awesome.
That's really good.
That is
Yeah.
really good. And you're
Walk
right.
the floors.
Yeah.
So on that note, if I could add one more thing.
Go for it.
In today's, flexible workplace, which I fully support, our firm supports, we have a lot of folks who work from home from time to time. But my message to emerging professionals is show up. And why? It's because we're better when we're together. And the most effective mentoring happens when we're face-to-face like this. It just does. And it's such a valuable tool in creating or elevating one's career path.
Yeah, I do second that. All of my clients are 100% virtual, but we do meet once a year in person, and the energy in that room and the energy in this room and at this conference is going to be totally different than the energy of virtual.
Yeah. So speaking of like younger generation, do you find yourself getting mentored from them? Because again, it's a old dogs, new tricks kind of stuff. This is this young group is, holy smokes, what they're starting to do. They may not have the experience as you do, but they certainly are on the technical side. And, you probably got a great response for this.
Yeah. Oh, I get schooled every day.
Yeah.
Every time I open up LinkedIn, there's this 20-year-old dude who did something and made $1 million. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How? Teach me.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's natural though, right? I feel like they come in with new ideas and it's not, they don't see the hurdles in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then figure out the hurdles. I think so that way, for me at least, I get schooled every day and I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
That keeps me running.
They're very resilient, I would say. The ones, at least the ones that I'm exposed to, are extremely resilient. Like you said, and maybe it's every generation, and I'm just now getting to the age where I'm seeing it and the generation below me, but they're very resilient. They're like, let's go, let's do this. And I'm like, do you see all the obstacles that we have ahead of us? And they're like, yeah, let's just do it anyways, right? And that's so empowering and refreshing to see in some manners.
Yeah. And I guess, and this is a question for you, Mark, like with Aspire, with your local user groups, are you finding, like, because the end of the thing is the older generation, we're slowly dying off and that stuff. Are you finding the younger generation be part of it, or are you still, kind of giving that trying to spur them on, or do you find it's a good healthy mix that you are seeing?
Oh, it's totally a healthy mix. Yeah, it has to be, and we're in we're constantly transitioning, right? And we have to empower the next generation. That's so important for our profession to thrive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And again, kind of last with this segment, Morgan, I'm assuming with your negotiate your salary course, it's going to be a lot of this in the conversation, or a little bit different, a little bit of mix.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of this. We're going to talk about, and I hope is everybody coming to that one? If not, then sign up, be there. I'm going to count and watch your faces and make sure you're all there. It's going to be super amazing. We're going to talk about the data that we actually bring to the table to support the salary that we're requesting, right? Many architects come to the table and just want a salary increase. Well, we have to provide the data from the last 365 days, and we also have to talk about what we're going to do in the next 365 days to support that salary increase. We're also going to talk about the million other things, literally the million other things that you can negotiate above and beyond your salary.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, you guys, you counted. You're going to be in it. So.
Yeah, I counted. Yeah,
no, that's right. And yeah, we talked about the mid generation being involved, and I guess any last, and again, each one you can respond if you want, but kind of the piece of advice, basically the encouragement to get in, why, the value of it.
Well, I do want to add to what Mark said earlier about Aspire. I think another idea that we have is to make it like South by Southwest, to bring in more energy and bring in people outside of architecture too, right? And that was the initial vision that we had. And I think we're still pursuing that. But I feel. Wait, what was the question again? I've forgotten.
I have to go back. I guess like if you had to kind of things to encourage young generation, if you had words of advice, what would you offer?
Oh, go talk to everybody. It doesn't matter. Just talk. Even if you don't know what to talk, just go say hi and talk about the weather, the food, and something will come up. And then that person will connect you to somebody else. And then that's how you form this whole community around you.
Your network is your net worth.
I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
I would say make mistakes early and often, and daily, make mistakes and continue going through. That's the fastest way to learn. We're talking about negotiating your salary because I'm obsessed with that right now in my life and my career, but do it. Get the no and then do it again and then get the no again and then do it again, right? That's what life is about. That's what your career is about. That's what business is about.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And one last thing.
So go for it.
I find that universities that are most successful have that multidisciplinary aspect to them. So architecture and city planning and historic preservation and graphic design and fabrics and fashion are all in one school of design. And I find that completely valuable and something that we can all learn off of one another. And I think it would be absolutely amazing to have that here at Aspire as well. So I'm excited to see that in the future.
Yeah.
My only other word of advice would be patient. This profession, our industry is constantly evolving. We're always learning new things, and that takes time. And there is a lot to learn. Be patient.
And that's a great segue into the fact that what is a conference without AI? And I thought AI, like when it was kind of being brought at these conferences about 2 years ago, it was either going to be like the 3D TV realm. It was either going to go and be all excitement and then drop, or it was going to blow our minds and just get better and better and better. And the prediction, the better. It's it's just not stopping it. And this is your expertise, Gil. This is your world.
I don't know if it's, I wouldn't call it my expertise. I just read a lot more.
Yeah.
So, it's just a little bit of more knowledge. I don't know about expertise though. It's a strong word.
But what are you seeing like as each day passes by and like, again, what is the next level?
Well, I think, Mark, you said patience. I'm struggling with that.
Me too.
Yeah, it's hard. I think also with the AC industry in general, we've always been slow to adapt to new tech.
Yeah.
And that's kind of showing even in this case. I wasn't privy to what happened when Revit came about in 2000. So I just know just a firsthand experience. But now it's kind of the same deal where slowly it's happening.
Yeah.
But it is going to take a lot more effort because there is no data available for the applications to be built on.
Yeah.
And so it's change management, data, and also we're humans, right? We're kind of afraid of change. And so that adds complexity to it. So yeah, I think it's going, but very slowly.
And are you allowing, like, again, in your firms and where you're saying, are you embracing AI or are you kind of going, well, let's just hang on?
With Newcomb and Void, 100%. I think the question that I was hired on, or the question that I'm asking at Newcomb is, how can we become an AI first engineering firm? Nice. Like, what does that entail? Like, where do you even begin? Right. And so setting up processes, like first of all, just breaking up the whole process, like the whole project pipeline from when we get an RFP from an architect until the end when it's actually put in place. Every process that goes in needs to be looked at, I think almost broken apart and then put back together to actually meet, right? So yes, some firms are opening up to the idea, but I think it's still a long way, at least in the AC. Outside the AC, it's just running. Every day is a new day.
And it is. And like, Mark, do you guys have policies in place? Or are you guys saying, like, you do it, but these are the guidelines?
It's evolving. We are exploring very much the AI technologies. We're using it. Tying it into mentoring, I'm blown away by what I'm learning from our emerging professionals with regard to that technology. I'm not learning to manipulate and do it, but I'm learning about the capabilities and the opportunities and how architects can capitalize on them.
Yeah. 100%. Go ahead.
I was speaking at the Entre Architect conference about a year ago, and one of the speakers was talking about AI as well. And they actually have an AI coworker. They will call her their coworker, and they call her by name, and it's AI. So I find that just a little bit creepy, and we probably need to discuss that in a little bit more detail. But they thought it was so normal.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to show you my phone because I have like 10 of them.
Oh no!
You got
Are they all named?
Well, no, they're just numbers now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Are you going to name them?
No.
Okay.
You sure? Yeah. I named my cars.
Humanized.
I name my
I want to name the one that orchestrates all of these agents, June.
Okay.
Um,
So she's the what is her role?
she's the orchestrator of
The
all of-
orchestrator.
yeah, who takes
Yeah.
care of all of these guys.
And all of the other AI individuals, are those like, do they have roles, primary roles?
yeah.
Yeah. So is one like social media, one?
One is like email, social
Yeah.
media, code for me. I have one that I talk to about app ideas.
Yeah.
I have one for mentorship, just
Uh-huh.
because might as well at this point.
Yeah. I feel like they deserve names.
I think, So, and they all have context on how they look into the data that they look into so that they don't hallucinate.
Yeah.
So,
Which is an actual word and something
Yeah.
that they do.
Yes.
I learned at the other conference, right?
Okay.
Hallucination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I do have a couple.
It is interesting how you're humanizing us. It's
Right?
a little scary because
It's very scary.
you know, like 90s kid here, you know, like I watched my Terminator movies. I loved it. You know, me and my buddies would ride our bikes and pretend to be John Connor on the motorcycle. We did that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and coming today, and like even we were watching it, a couple of years back when this was even before. Now it's like, boy, this is the machine is going to do the job.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think you always, at least now, we need human in the loop. But maybe after a point where we have taught it enough that it doesn't self-learn just yet. I think you still need to trigger it. There's still that first step that needs to be done.
That's right.
So at least at the moment in time, there is human in the loop involved, and we always need human in the loop just for security, privacy, and all of that. But the talk of AGI is real, and that will happen, but maybe not in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of client engagement that is necessary that AI is not going to replace for some time. And resulting design, I cheated a little bit. I saw this question, so I actually did a little research and I found a quote that I thought was really relevant on how we can still lead the conversations and not let technology take over. A sword, no matter however sharp, is only as good as the one who wields it. That kind of sums it up, I think.
Well, and the AI doesn't have those soft skills that I was discussing,
That's
right?
right.
And how I think those soft skills are so important. The AI will arguably never have those, I hope. I hope not. They have the soft skills. Ooh.
I think AI
Getting
really
better.
is used to augment creativity, right? And to help us with the repetitive tasks so that we can focus on strategy and strategic design.
I was listening to a podcast from Simon Sinek, and he had the author, and I shame myself because I read them as a kid, but basically the author that wrote Superman, right? All that, and then talking about that, and again, his daughter was like, "You should try out AI to write a book, Dad," and he did it. And at the end of the day, he summed it up so well, and it's going to sit with me for quite some time. Is AI does not have taste.
No.
And it was really sunk, and it's like that's a good point, because even though you can write up a sales thing, use it, you can write up looking at the CA, you can write it up to do a podcast if you want. Like, it's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, you're the conductor. This is how I feel with it. I use it daily, of course. I have fun with it, and it's always challenging. It's like, thank you for trying, but go back. And it's that assistant. You're the one that's the responsible. You're the one that's reviewing those shop drawings. You're the one that's reviewing the design. You're the one that's doing the renderings and going, that's good, but that's not my vision, because you're the artist, you're the architect. Drive. That was my kind of, soapbox moment.
No, that makes sense. I agree with that. I think it does not know how to connect the dots. Like, you can tell it to connect the dots this way, but it's still as how we connect the dots. I don't know if with you guys, but I get ideas when I'm showering. And it's amazing, like all of these new app ideas that I get when I go to shower. Yeah. I don't know if it can connect the dots like the way I connect the dots in everything that I've read across the board, right?
But can you train it to?
Well, I'm trying, and it's gonna take a while. But I've given it like patterns of how I think as the context, and then I ask it like, just use this, but then now I have this idea. It's still not as good.
But it's getting better, right?
Yeah,
and each one of those individual AI bots that you have, you're training each one of them to have a different voice and have a different language and speak a different language?
Well, not a different language. English.
English, yes, but different vocabulary, no?
Well, no.
No?
Maybe since like email is different from social media.
Right.
For sure.
A different tone of voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's like a serious tone, if it's a fun tone. Yeah. And I think giving it more examples will get you close. But I think you still always need human, like you said.
Yeah.
You always need that taste.
Yeah, go into your shower thing, because I always wonder. I thought I was crazy, and I heard other people talk about it, but no. I finally I got into the room. I'm like, why do you have these like amazing thoughts when in that moment? It's why the water hits the back of your muscles, and then it really stimulates the nerves, and yeah. So yeah, we can be shower. No, we're not going down that road.
No.
No, I'm out.
No comment. Moving on. So I guess, wrap up this segment about AI. Is there any platforms that you guys as a firm, as an individual, are really excited to see? Like, again, something's good, like the latest nano banana. Like, oh my goodness, what is the heck is this? And then seeing the stuff that people are doing from a hand sketch to getting something, and then can you animate this?
Yeah.
Holy smokes! Like, what the heck?
Well, there's a whole list of things. I think for design, there's this app called xfigura.ai. Okay. It's similar to like Grasshopper in terms of the components flowing.
Yeah.
But it's great that you can convert an image to a 3D model and then put it on Grasshopper and then put it in Rhino and then actually play with the model.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
That's a good one. And then you also have, I think Giraffe is a good one for like, city planning or urban planning. Yeah. Giraffe's a pretty good one. What else? There's also one last one. There's also Finch 3D.
Okay.
That is really good for space planning on the space planning.
Yes. Yeah. I know.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, and it's easy to work with. Yeah. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off. I was gonna ask, with an architecture firm with 12 offices, are you all using ChatGPT? And
Yes, absolutely.
If so, how?
Yes. We use it. Well, I can tell you, I personally use it to help me write proposal work.
Yes.
Not to write it, but to again, help with the redundant tasks, help with generating ideation. So we're using that. I wanted to follow up on Akhil on some of the technologies. We're using some 3D, AI software, Midjourney and Veris.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to tell you what it can and can't do. I'm just really, I'm boggled by what it can do. It's pretty amazing on how we're manipulating that enhanced design to generate idea. It's an ideation tool. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you use any of yourself, Morgan, or is something the ones that you're pretty excited to see in the industry?
A lot of my clients use the ChatGPT for marketing mostly, I would say. So email generation, marketing funnels, social media, all of those things. I mean, our proposals as well.
Yeah. At home with ChatGPT, I sometimes like you look in the fridge, you're like, oh, there's not much in this. So I'll just be like, all right, we got this. What is the recipes? And like, we've discovered some really cool recipes at home and everything.
Really?
It's well, yeah, you just basically say what this is.
Yeah.
Or if we play so many board games and like a bunch of them with numbers and you're like, well, I have these numbers and that's really cheating. But again, it's like crazy. Like it's everything you can think about, and the talk feature that you can do with the app is pretty cool. And have a conversation. My window wasn't closing on my Bronco and I'm just like, all right, chat, what's going on? Why is that? Well, have you tried this? Have you hold up the window button? Like, and fixed it right then and there. I'm like, so it is pretty cool because I find, to summarize AI and wrap this up, is I find AI is going to the actual library, walk in the room and going, I need to research this, I need to do this, and everything is right there. Everything. It's the days of when we went and pulled out all the encyclopedias and then these books and everything. I find Google nowadays, it's a mess. It's like me going downtown in a really scummy area, and it's just like everyone's repeating, do this, buy this, and everything. And like, oh yeah, this is the best one. And well, what is the truth, right?
Yeah.
And this at least algorithms and puts it all together as an area. And that's my little metaphor of it, but it may change tomorrow.
No, you're right there. I feel like the way we consume knowledge is changing. Like you said, we used to, and patience, I come back to patience all the time, because we used to like read a book, read the whole book, but just pick out one part, right? But to pick out that one part, we read the whole book and read multiple books, talk to professors, speak to people. But now it's instantly available every time you want to ask a question, right? And so that changes how we consume knowledge, and that's only going to change. And I don't know if it's for the better or for worse. And I think we'll have to adapt to that level of availability of knowledge.
Yeah.
And
so,
I think we are in architecture firms, right? You see the younger generation that are,
yeah,
including myself. I'm the least patient person you'll probably meet, but you'll see,
same.
right?
Yeah.
It's because we have that information
patience.
coming in so quickly. I mean, something that I have to practice daily is patience.
Yeah.
I guess like for me, the big thing is the retention. There was a good little study where they had 2 different groups of college students. I said, all right, you're going to do a report. One group got AI and they got, the internet, they got everything. They got to do it. They were done like that and boom. And then the other group had to go the old school way and do the encyclopedia. When it came to present, the retention was unbelievable with the group that sat down and did their notes by hand and did their research. They knew it. They could speak on it. The other group, nothing.
Yeah.
I have a thought to that.
Okay.
I have that retention, really bad retention too.
Yeah.
And I say that because the more I do in different aspects of creating an app or like building workflows, the more I feel like I don't need to know the whole information. I need just this one paragraph from this book, and it's in my notes. If I want to go back, I'll go back to the notes.
Yeah.
So I have become that, where my retention is pretty bad. So if you were to ask me anything, I'm like, I don't know, but I have it in my notes. It's there. Everything is written down.
Yeah.
So I have evolved to that, and I don't know if it's good or bad.
I can tell an analogy. So no secret, I'm of a prior generation of architects, and I sketch a lot. Everywhere I go, I take the sketchbook and I sketch. And what do we do when we go through our communities these days? Snap, 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 snap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always encourage my colleagues to sketch, when they're visiting, when they're traveling, whatever, and sketch. Sit down and experience an environment. So it's kind of a similar thought. You take in the environment, and you'll come away with memory versus just snap, snap, snap.
Yeah.
It allows you to immerse yourself in the community that you're in, and that's what. And there is a sketching class here on, I think, either tomorrow or Tuesday, right? Is it tomorrow?
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into that one.
I think
Get out and
tomorrow is
sketch.
yoga.
Yeah. And it is important. I was taught early on about, when Richard Negrin and everything, he would basically draw on the paper and he's like, I know what I'm drawing. And it's so true. When you draw that line, you visualize that wall versus Revit on click, click. And
There you go.
it's the same thing in the CD world. Like, going back in my days, I had CDs and a lot of them were ripped. That's not the point, but we had them and, we listened to it. I knew what track 7 of that Finger 11 or that Metallica album or whatever. Nowadays, with everything being spontaneous, it's so hard to retain it because it's not that physical, putting the record on, putting a CD on. And yeah.
But I have a question to that, right? Do you feel that's the case? Because we started out in a way where everything was physical, and then that's the way we learned. But the current generation who are born now, this is their datum, and this is how they're going to learn. So they won't possibly face what we face in terms of knowledge retention. I don't know. I feel like that's the question that I ask. I'm like, yes,
That's a good point. No. Yeah.
right. And so, what do you guys think? Do you see any thoughts on that?
What's going to be interesting 10 years from now, 20 years from now, how architecture is transforming because of this new generation that's coming up and has that shorter attention span and that information that they don't necessarily have to absorb. Getting into back to like the CA, because I've been thinking about this since you invited me to be a panelist on this podcast, is, something that I even lacked as a 35-year-old was actual time in the construction, time in the building, like actually understanding how a building was put together, not just lines on the paper, right? Yeah. So coming back to the CA, same with, younger architects, including myself, is, I guess I can call myself young, I suppose, but
we're all young.
We're all young.
Yeah, of course.
But the 20-some-year-olds, like how often are they getting into the actual building, like hands-on, like physical, like you're saying, like touching it now?
Cool. Pick up a hammer.
I go to the job site now. I have a toolbox in my car, and I go to the job site and I feel the material because 100%. It's something that I was lacking in the industry. Yeah.
It's one thing to draw detail, but actually you assemble it, that's a different story.
That's a different story.
100%.
Well, I have one more question. So there's this app called OpenSpace.
Yes.
Which you just put a camera on your hard hat and you walk around, and then it scans the whole space for you.
Yeah.
And then it puts it either in VR or it matches the Revit to the Revit model. And it shows everyday progress instantly, right? So if that is what's going to happen, do you think that just putting on a VR headset and then walking around in the space?
You're missing all the senses.
Yeah.
Sight, smell,
Okay.
Well, until AI has smell, right? I mean, they might at some point. They probably will.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, all it has to do is look at the brain waves of how humans react to each smell,
That's interesting.
and then it'll know that this is possibly dirty smell, or yummy smell.
Right. And how will our clients, or how will architectural clients react to that as well, which they already are starting with the VR, right? But how will they interact with that overall? And how will that impact CA? And it probably already is in many ways, right?
I'll put a plug because I'm doing a CA class too here. And it's about where construction administration currently is, where it's going. And it's a whole workshop that it's on the Tuesday and everything. So, check it out. And we do talk about a lot of stuff that we've talked today and everything. But what are you kind of wrapping this up, because we're coming up to the hour, is what are you most excited about this kind of next 2 days, 2.5 days? You could say the podcast. I'd be okay with that. But hey.
This right here. I'm excited to meet everybody. Like I said, I've never been to Aspire. I've never spoken here. I've never met probably a lot of the individuals in this room. I know some of you all followed me on social media. So come say hi to me and introduce yourself, because I'm just excited to meet the community. And hopefully it's a long-lasting relationship.
Yeah.
Gosh, catching up with old friends, walking the streets of Asheville, enjoying this beautiful scenery, sitting down and sketching a little bit, having some great food, creating more memories.
Love it.
Yeah.
I think it's the podcast. I don't know. I think it's the podcast.
You're too kind.
You're running on another episode, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to invite him on my podcast.
That's right.
There
And
we
then
go.
we can do that. Now, I think the podcast, meeting you guys, meeting everybody. I'm also presenting tomorrow, but I think I'm excited to share knowledge, and I think all of that is why I'm excited to come here. And this is like my fourth year actually.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So where can we find you? Our audience has heard your stories, your voice, your passion. Mark, if they want to reach out, where are they going to find you on the socials or whatever?
Oh, on socials. LinkedIn, that's my social media. But you'll find me running the office of LS3P and, being passionate about tomorrow's communities. When I'm not doing that, I'll be up in North Georgia with my wife and my dog and taking long walks in the Blue Ridge.
Nice.
Beautiful. You can find, I'm Morgan Chawaga. You can find me on The Healthy Architect. So Instagram, The Healthy Architect. The website is www.thehealthyarchitect.org. I have a podcast, The Healthy Architect. I have a Facebook community group, which is The Healthy Architects. We talk about salaries on Sundays. And I think that's all. I won't give my phone number or anything, but Facebook and LinkedIn too. The Healthy Architect.
You can reach me on Akhil Hemanth at AOL.com. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. LinkedIn. I also have a podcast. It's called the Tell Me More Pod. Instagram, you can, holler at me. I'll do my best to reach out. Always answering questions.
Nice. Well, thank you guys for being part of this. This was an absolute blast and everything, and coming all from different parts and everything, for the whole AIA Aspire team for bringing this together and organizing this. Like I said, it's been a treat. I'm beyond excited, and we're just kicking it off. We got the keynote coming up, and then there are bands tonight, and the community-driven aspect. This is so cool. So wrapping this up, last but not least.
Wait, hold on. Thank you for having me, man.
Oh,
thank you for having me.
Thank you, Matt.
You let us say thank you.
Yeah.
You said thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you for having us. It's been
awesome.
an amazing experience.
Yeah, this has been really nice. Nice to meet everybody. Thank you so much.
I hope we do it again too.
Yeah.
We'll keep it going. So it's fun, sharing the knowledge.
It's a lot of fun.
So, but last not but least, architects keep designing and contractors keep making those blueprints a reality. We'll see you on the next one.